Have you ever made a token purchase in Marvel Snap and then immediately regretted it a day later? Well, I have. I've made a lot of token purchases in Snap, and some have felt a lot worse than others, and some have felt great and have stood the test of time. But my quest here today is to take all of the cards that have been released in Marvel Snap from this point all the way to when the token shop was first developed and put into the game. Okay, we're going to talk about over 35 cards and rank them in these tiers on how they felt when you spent the tokens on them on release. Okay, now I'm also including the season pass cards here, and I know they don't cost tokens, but they do eventually, right? A month later, after the season pass ends, they enter series 5 and they cost 6,000 tokens. So when I talk about those cards, I'm going to be talking about that point in time, not when they were released as the season pass card. And then also quick note, this is just my perspective and like general community feelings and maybe like how the meta shifted and adapted to these cards. Okay, so like don't take it too personally. This is super lighthearted. I think every card in Marvel Snap can be really, really fun if you're passionate and enjoy it. So if you picked it up and you spent the tokens on it, and just because I gave it a low tier rating doesn't mean the card's not fun. It's all about what you want in this game. And I want to regret nothing. So let's get to this. We got the first card here, and it's Absorbing Man. So when the token shop first was released, a lot of people, got a bunch of tokens because they had been playing up to this point and you got X amount of tokens, and then like 12 cards were released. It was fantastic. Everyone was trying to figure out what they wanted to get. Absorbing Man was one of those cards, but Absorbing Man has to go to the B tier. So it only cost 3,000 tokens, which is fantastic. So that definitely elevates it in the tiers. It didn't feel too bad, not too much of an investment, but it wasn't really played a whole lot. There was the odd deck that was trying to do gimmicky things, but I don't know if there was like a meta-defining deck that actually took advantage of Absorbing Man. Okay, so gotta give him the B tier, not feeling too good about it. By the way, we're going to be ripping through these because there's so many. Agent Coulson, go to the C tier. Love this card. I think it's going to do great in Conquest. Really fun in Devil Dino decks. Really fun card in general. But if you spend 3,000 tokens on Agent Coulson, I mean, probably not the best investment, okay? Another one is Atuma. We got to put Atuma in tier C because he just ends up killing himself, and then you don't get to see the card that you spent all that money for. If you do manage to protect him, that's great, but there's a lot of counters, and that sucks. So, yeah, sometimes feels bad. Probably not worth the 3,000 tokens when it was released, but let me tell you a card that was worth it, and that was Bast. I'm putting Bast in A tier. Dude, I picked up Bast for 6k tokens, and I was not looking back. This card is awesome. I love playing with my Iron Man Mystique combos. There's just so much deck building possibilities with Bast. It is a fantastic card. Another one is Black Panther. Now, Black Panther is going to go to the B tier. Now, Black Panther was released in November as the season pass, but it became Series 5 when the token shop was launched, okay? So that's why it is here, and I'm going to give it B tier because people had already figured out Black Panther. And one of the best things about Black Panther is you play it and then you play Arnim Zola. And I find a lot of the times if I end up playing the Panther, then a lot of people recognize that Arnim Zola is coming, so they just retreat. And that sucks. I hate that. I want to play this card and be able to like interact with it. But more often than not, I play it and they're gone. So, maybe you can get small amounts of cubes at a time. Maybe you got to like find that combo. I don't know. It doesn't feel too good. Going to the B tier. Okay, Darkhawk though. Oh my goodness. Darkhawk is easily S tier material, okay? If you pick this card up for 6,000 tokens, it actually was launched a little bit later, so it wasn't 3,000 tokens, it was 6k tokens. And it actually used to have a 4-1 stat line, which is pretty wild. In the data mines, it had a completely different effect, but the one we know today is really, really good. It has been one of the most meta-defining cards for the last 6 months, and yet Team Seconder still has it at Series 4. That is a huge mistake. I am not happy about the series drops. Okay, I just haven't had time to touch on that, but this is kind of the way I'm doing it, and I am not happy about it not dropping. I think it should be Series 3, but there you go. It's an S tier pick up. Even right now, honestly, if you have 3,000 tokens kicking around, it's a worthwhile card. It doesn't seem to be getting nerfed anytime soon. I would go for it, dude. Okay, another one that is the opposite is Dazzler. Dazzler is a D tier card. Dude, I want to love this card. I want to love it. but it's 6,000 tokens in January. Like, get out of town. I don't got those tokens available. Even if I did, I wasn't spending on this card because like the condition is too difficult to meet. Like, I don't know how you could justify picking up this card and then playing it all the time. Like, I would get so frustrated never being able to see it get to its full potential, which is only 10 power. The guy Atuma I was just talking about can get to 10 power if he's protected by armor and it's Happy Days. So holy smoke, I feel like they need to buff Dazzler ASAP. Jeez, make her 3 cost or 2 cost even. I don't even know. It's such a difficult condition to meet. Okay, next up is Galactus. Galactus is S tier. I mean, it costs 6,000 tokens, but he's always cost 6,000 tokens. So by default, you might think that all the big bads are going to be S tier. Well, they're not. They're actually not. There's a few that don't actually make the cut, but Galactus does. For animation, for power, all that good stuff. It's an S tier pickup for your monies, for your value, for your tokens. Okay, but you know what's not? It's the big plane himself, Helicarrier. Helicarrier joined the D tier with Dazzler. I'm not convinced that you were worth 3,000 tokens when we were released, and I don't think it would be worth spending tokens on now. Luckily, it's a Series 3 card at this point in time. But another one is Ghost. Dude, Ghost, you're going to C tier. Actually, you know what? Ghost, you're going to D tier. Ghost is just not a very good card. It works in some decks. It helps the Valkyrie package and, you know, that sort of thing. But I mean, come on, man. Like, I don't know. Like, and again, we're not talking about power level of cards, okay? We're not talking about whether a card is strong or not. What I'm talking about is when this card was released and you had 6,000 tokens in the bank and you spent all of it. You spent every last drop of your tokens on this card. And how did you feel the next day? How did you feel a week after? How did you feel the month after? Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that you probably hardly played it. I don't even think you might have even got it to Infinite Border. And maybe you did, and that's great. But I certainly would not have. I have Ghost. I don't even know if I've played her. So, geez, yeah, 6,000 tokens, not worth it. Should have been a 3,000 token card or less. But you know what's a great one? Is High Evo. Man, I haven't even picked up High Evo and I know how valuable this card is. I totally regret picking up the card that I, passed High Evo for. So we're gonna get to that in a second. But High Evo makes a deck out of all kinds of cards that weren't being used. Very meta defiant right now, and also is going to be great in Conquest. So definitely S tier material. Another one is Hitmonkey. So Hitmonkey, season pass card for April. And then May, it would have joined Series 5. I do believe it's Series 5 card right now. And that's why it gets A tier, because I don't know if you need to save the tokens to get this card, but it certainly helps a lot of decks. I've been running bounce decks with a little bit of move, and Hitmonkey is just so good. You get it to 10 power easy. And if you can bounce this card back, and then you're just getting to crazy power totals for only costing 2. Fantastic value card, but it could be passed on. I wouldn't suggest coughing up the tokens for it at this moment in time. You know what I'm saying? Another card is Howard the Duck. Dude, I love Howard. I love Howard the Duck, but I don't think he's worth his cost. He's not a 6,000 token card, But I've had a lot of fun, and it works really well. It's just a bit of a win more, add more card to your deck. I think it's going to do great in Conquest, but otherwise, don't cough up the money. Let it be. Let it drop in series. Hopefully, if they continue the series drops, my God. And then the other card that came out that month is Iron Lad. Okay, so Iron Lad, I'm gonna put Iron Lad in the B tier. Dude, this card got overhyped. A lot of people were talking about how this is like the most broken card to ever join Marvel Snap. And then a week later, did you even see it being played? Do you even come across it anymore? Like, I feel like it just got cut on all the lists because it wasn't the direct synergy that a lot of decks need. If you're playing a bounce deck, you want the bounce cards that benefit directly. If you're playing a discard deck, you want the discard cards. And funny enough, Iron Lad can be that, but he also can whiff. And because there's that element of randomness, he ends up getting passed on. So I think it's a good card. I think it's kind of worth 3,000 tokens. I would probably say that's a pretty safe buy. But when it was 6,000 tokens, it could have been passed on and you would have been better for it. Another one is Jeff. I'm going to actually put Jeff in the A tier because it's Jeff. Do I have to say anything else? Well, really quickly, I'll just say that it fits in a lot of decks, so it's a worthwhile card. You can basically put 11 cards together in a deck and then fill it with Jeff, and you're going to be happy that you did. A lot of people ask, what can I replace Jeff with in this deck? Well, pretty much anything. Okay, then we have the one card I want to talk about almost the most. That is Kang. Kang is going to the bottom of the D tier. Man, I just am not a Kang believer. every time I've played against it, my opponent probably retreats because they realize that they don't really have enough cards remaining in their hand to beat me. And then yeah, okay, maybe they got out and they saved themselves 2 cubes, but then they retreat. I don't want a card in my deck that's going to help me retreat early. I want a card in my deck that's going to help me win. And maybe that's just the way I play Marvel Snap, but my goodness, like I just doesn't feel good to have Kang in my deck. I don't find it very impactful when it's played against me, and I don't know, it just doesn't seem like that cube saver that a lot of people proclaim it to be. So Kang, I don't think he's the big bad that's worth it. If you got 6,000 tokens and you're thinking about getting a big bad, do not get the Conqueror. All right, next up is Null. Null's going to go to the B tier, primarily because it just needs a lot of support, right? If you don't have Galactus, then Null's not so worth it, and that's a 12,000 token combo. Null might be series 4 at this point, so it's a little bit cheaper, but still that's expensive. I wouldn't suggest it. And then otherwise you can run him in destroy decks, which can work, but it needs a lot of support, so you get the B tier Null. Also some really cool variants though. Very cool card. Okay, next up, we have Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde is going to the A tier. I think it's one of the best one drops right now. It's so good. And it also was the only card in this list to almost be a net positive of tokens, because if you actually spent, when it was first released, the 6,000 tokens on it, then you ended up getting 2,000 tokens later on in the card for free. so how could I put it any lower? If anything, it should be S tier. But like if the card had been released, 6,000 tokens, not bugged or anything, I'd still put it in the A tier. I think it's a fantastic card, okay? Next up is Luke Cage. Luke Cage, you're going to go to the C tier. When it was released, it didn't really matter. There wasn't that high evo. There was hazmat combos, but that was about it. It's not the tech card that it is today, so to spend 3,000 tokens on it back in the day was not worth it. You know what else isn't worth it? Passing on High Evolutionary for the Living Tribunal. Yeah, that's a mistake. Don't do that. Don't listen to me, because geez, I gave this card 5 stars. And sometimes it's hard. You're trying to review these cards before they're in the game. You don't know the combos. But yeah, just dispersing your power amongst all 3 locations is not really what you want to do in Marvel Snap. You're trying to win too. I still hold a belief that Living Tribunal will find a crazy combination in the future that will be worrisome. It's kind of like that, like Galactus, Wave, Spider-Man combo, right? Even though Spider-Man was just nerfed. But that combo was really high rolling. You had to draw those 3 cards. And then if you played them, it was like Exodia. You win the game. I feel like Living Tribunal is like 1 card away from that happening. But we're not there yet, so you're in the D tier, bud. Okay, next up is Maria Hill. If you got Agent Coulson in C tier, you gotta put Maria Hill. So there she is. I'm also gonna lump in Master Mold because I don't find it that effective of a card. If you spend 6,000 tokens on it, that's a bit rough, dude. That's a bit rough. Definitely a 3,000 token card. M'Baku is not even 3,000 token cards. That card should be free. That should be in Series 1. This was renowned as like one of the worst cards in Marvel Snap, period, when it was announced. And then it cost 3,000 tokens when it was released. That's crazy to me. Definitely not worth that much. Then we got MODOK. I got to put MODOK in the A tier because it's just such a staple in discard decks. If you like discard, then you got to get MODOK. It's just necessary. The 2 go hand in hand. Alrighty, then we got Negasonic Teenage Warhead going to the D tier. Ben Brode kind of tweeted out that it was his favorite card, and that single-handedly convinced me that this is going to be really fun. And then I actually found myself a little bit frustrated when I would play it, because if I had Prio, then my opponent could kind of decide what to destroy, and then I would lose all the power that I invested, and even the power buff to where it wasn't really worth it. It kind of almost hurts more because she gets destroyed and you lose 5 power at a location. So yeah, I was kind of disappointed that I spent 6,000 tokens on this card. I would have much rather saved that for something else. But Nebula is a really good card. I'm going to put Nebula in the A tier. I think it's a fantastic 1-drop. I don't see it talked about enough. It gets overshadowed, I think, by like Kitty Pryde and a few other things in the 1-drop department. But Nebula just feels so good to me. Like forcing my opponent to play there, generating value passively. Love this card. I have that variant, which I adore. So yeah, I'm happy with Nebula. I think that's a great pickup. Nimrod was the March Season Pass card, and Nimrod's going to go to the C tier because I feel like, again, it needs support. It's kind of like got that null factor, but it needs even more support in that it's pretty much like just good in Galactus. Like there's some combos where you Carnage Venom in a different lane, you destroy them, they go everywhere. But a lot of times this can feel underwhelming, clunky, slow, and it just doesn't work out. So I'm putting Nimrod in the C tier. Then we got Sauron. Sauron's going to go into the B tier. This is a pretty solid card. It works in its archetype, right? That 0, that no ability, removing ongoing abilities. It's just so good for that. And it's not too expensive where it doesn't feel too bad to play. So I think if you spent 6,000 tokens in January on this card, I think it's not the worst feeling in the world. Not to mention Shuri was running wild in those Red Skull decks when Red Skull was 15 power, and Sauron was helping out quite a bit. So it was a powerhouse, to say the least. So I think that's a pretty worthwhile pickup, but I'm going to keep it in the B tier because it's not the best part of that package, right? We're going to get to that in a second. Next up is Sentry. So Sentry's got to go to the D tier, and I'm running out of room here, but D tier for Sentry because it was a 4/8 and it would spawn a -8 void, and it's restricted by locations. You can't play it on the right. Like, there's just so much not going right for this card. And Darkhawk was released in the same month, and that was clearly the better card than Sentry. Yeah, and it wasn't until the recent buffs did it kind of have a place, but it's still a bit awkward. You know, you can do Viper shenanigans, you can destroy the void, but then it's a 4/10, and we see that so often. There's just other options other than Sentry, but that variant is fire. Then we got Shadow King, who also is going to join the D tier, which I have run out of space, so we're going to boop. There's the Shadow King, and then we're just going to put Shadow King like right there in the D tier. Boom. Happy days for Shadow King overlapping Dazzler, because I would pick up Shadow King over Dazzler. But, you know, just not a very good card, dude, when it was released. It was 4/3. It cost 4 with 3 power, and it felt bad. There weren't a lot of cards that it was stopping. The meta wasn't really there to help it. It was supposed to counter Shuri Red Skull shenanigans, and it just never caught on. Yeah, not worth 6,000 tokens. Another one is Shanna. Shanna's not worth 6,000 tokens. You can just get super small and go right beside Kang here, right beside me and Kang. Yeah, Shanna, nope, not worth it. Shanna she's just a little bit awkward, right? She's gonna spawn a bunch of cards. If you roll like Blade and it discards a crucial card for your next turn, if you roll 0 and it doesn't let you play next turn, there's just so much that could happen. And then also you're spawning a bunch of stuff. Squirrel Girl could come out and then spawn a bunch of squirrels, and then you have like no space to play any cards. There's a lot that can go wrong with this card. And the latest buff kind of helped, but it's still not quite there. A card that's always been there is Shuri. Shuri goes to the top. She's just one of the better cards in the last 6 months. Yeah, she got nerfed and she's in a pretty good spot at this point in time. But she was the queen of the meta for, like I said, like 4, 5, 6 months. So she definitely gets S tier because she only costs 3,000 tokens. Like, that must be such a big regret on Team Second Dinner's end, where they could have had such a powerful card, such a good card released at Series 5, and they released it at Series 4. And yeah, it was just clearly one of the better cards. Along with She-Hulk. She-Hulk is still a fantastic card. It used to be a 6/10. It's a 6/9. I think it was just super well worth the 3,000 tokens that you had to spend. Both these cards, Shuri and She-Hulk, I ended up spending 3,000 tokens. 0 regrets. They're great pickups. On top of that is Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer was one of the craziest cards in the meta when it was first announced because it was a 3/0 and it was giving +3 power to all your 3 drops. That's crazy. It was so wild. To pick this up in the season pass was well worth it, but to even pick it up as 6,000 tokens in January was well worth it as well. There was no problem picking up this card. It was meta defined for quite a long time, and even after its nerfs, I still think this is a fantastic card and creates its own archetype in just like dominating the 3 drops. Anytime there's a 3 drop printed, you got to think, well, that could work in Surfer. Let's see how it does. So I think Surfer is S tier. Snowguard, though, is not. Snowguard is a sad card. Because Snowguard, you don't even ever get to see the variants. We're going to put Snowguard right there for no reason. You never get to see the variants because it's always changing, and it just doesn't really work out. It's awkward. It's changing from one to the other, and you want it to just be the other one, but it's your turn. It's now a bear, and then it's a hawk, and then what are we doing here? What are we doing? I don't want to spend 6,000 tokens on this, and if you did a few months ago, I feel bad for you because you're probably not playing the card a whole lot. Next up is Stegron. Now, I love Stegron. I picked this card up with 6,000 tokens, but I'm going to be honest with you. He's probably a C tier. He's really good, actually. I think when this card is, more accessible to the general public, we're going to find that this is actually a really good card. Because the disruption, you slap a card over to a location that has 3 spots filled, and that 4th spot was just chilling there. Then you filled it up, and you know exactly how much power you need to beat that location prior to the end of the game. which is really handy. And I think it works really well in a stuff deck, like giving junk. I've been playing that a lot and it works out very efficiently. So I've been having a lot of fun with Stegron, but I do understand that spending 6,000 tokens for a lot of people would make this C tier, or probably a lot of people would want to put it in the D tier, but I'm keeping it at C. Stature is a really interesting one. I'm going to put her in B tier. At the time when she was released, nobody was really picking up on the fact that she could be a 1/7 with Black Bolt. That deck could work. Like, that deck existed at that point in time, but nobody put it together and started to make it work. So, you know, Stature ended up getting nerfed and Black Bolt ended up getting nerfed, which is just crazy because they were like known as some of the weaker cards at the time. So if you spent the 6,000 tokens, you might have felt bad, but maybe you were one of the few that caught on that this combo is actually really, really good and you were winning a lot of cubes, which is why I got to give this B tier status. Okay. Then we got Super Scroll. That's another one that honestly I could have lower, but I'm going to give it B tier because every now and then there's a featured location that pops up and Super Scroll is like the craziest thing and absolutely wins you a bunch of games. So yeah, he's not lurking in every deck. He's not in like hardly any deck lists, but when it comes around, when that, you know, Onslaught Citadel is the featured location, man, this guy shines. He comes out of the woods to play. So you got to look out for that. Okay, here's another S tier card. And if you probably guessed it, it's Thanos. Dude, Thanos was the king of the meta for a while. This was the craziest card with his good old buddy Lockjaw cycling those stones and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It's still a really good card. I honestly don't know why people don't play it as much because I think that deck is still fantastic. But it's just a little bit slower now, I guess. Yeah, he's a big bad. He's always going to cost 6,000 tokens. It's a super worthwhile card. If you haven't picked him up yet, I would suggest doing so because it is very, very fun to play with Thanos. So very worthwhile. Then we got Valkyrie. That's going to go to the A tier. I think this is a great card, dude. I think this wins so many games. It's such a surprise. You can have a lot of low power, cheap things at a location. You hit them with the Valkyrie and the shock factor is just crazy. Maybe they've been stacking up a card or something like that. You just got to watch out for the ongoings. Those catch me off guard. I forget about it sometimes. Like if a card has an ongoing ability, which is giving it a surplus of power. I did that to a Hulk. That was the high evolutionary Hulk. And I totally forgot and it didn't even matter. Valkyrie didn't even scrape that guy. So you got to watch out for things like that. But for the most part, this is such a good card. And I think it's only going to grow in popularity as, you know, more people acquire it. This also, Valkyrie was also 6,000 tokens when she was released, right? So spending 6,000 tokens is a lot, okay, for a card that kind of needs a little bit of support or some kind of assistance, but it does counter other decks. So okay, next up is Titania. I don't know where I want to put Titania. Honestly, I'm going to put her in the C tier. I'm going to put Titania in the C tier. She's going to chill like right over here with Mr. Coulson, like top end C tier a little bit, because I don't know, she's one of those cards that's really tricky for me to like wrap my head around how to use, but like she's 1/5, dude. She's 1/5. But also, did you feel really excited about picking up Titania for 3,000 tokens when the shop released? Like, probably not. It's not the most exciting card, but it's good. It's good value. So it's got to get the C tier. And then the last card that I have for you guys today, we have covered all the cards that have entered Marvel Snap, you know, since the dawn of the token shop. And the last card I have for you is a season pass card, and it is Zabu. And I got to put Zabu in the S tier, makes the cut into the S tier because, come on, man, when this card was released, it was the craziest thing. The combos that people were pulling off with like your Wong, your Spider-Man, and all these things. Darkhawk, they've been duos, buddies forever. This is just crazy, man. This card's been nuts. So it's got to get S tier, and it still is crazy. It's still a very good card, even though it got nerfed. Can you believe that it used to discount your 4-drops by 2? That's crazy. That would not fly in today's Marvel Snap meta. So it's still really good, discounting by 1. And being a little bit cheaper than it was. It was originally a 3/2, but it was crazy. It was one of the best cards in the game, and it's still very good. It was worth 6,000 tokens then, and I don't know how much it costs right now, but it would be worth 3,000, I would say, if you were to pick it up right now. And I think it's Series 3, so that's okay. There you go. Look at this. Look at this. It's a tier list. We did a tier list. That was fun. I like talking about these cards. I like talking about regrets. As you can see, my personal biggest regrets were Kang the Conqueror, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and the Living Tribunal. Those are my 3 that I ended up purchasing. All those other ones on the bottom, I fortunately did not pull the trigger with tokens, so I don't regret those. But I do regret those 3. Those 3 hurt I think about those sometimes when I go to bed, but let me know what you regret and what you're happy with your token purchases. We have a very fun season happening right now, but I think a lot of people are up and down about whether they're going to, pull the trigger on these Spidey cards because they're all about move. But man, I'm saying if you're not big into move decks, wait till next month. It's going to be absolute fire. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.